I went to the Baltimore Comic-Con and almost didn't pick up any comic books. Stay tuned to find out what books I did pick up and why there were so few. Welcome back, comic book fans. It's Rusty again with Collector Auctions, and in today's episode, we continue my series of videos that I'm putting out on the Baltimore Comic-Con. This episode is going to be strictly about the books that I picked up, my search for regular comic books, whether they're big books or little books. We're going to talk about that today. I've only got a few books in this haul, and we're going to talk about why there's only a few in this. But before I begin, definitely hit that like, slap the subscribe, and click on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the episodes that I put out each and every week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 3 p.m. All right, guys, sit back. I've got the books ready. We're going to do a little show and tell. All right, guys, I've got the books that I picked up at the Baltimore Comic-Con this year. It is only a short little stack, and you're already asking yourselves, why so few books? Well, the primary focus for me at this con was to get things signed, and trust me, I got a lot of books signed. In fact, the first full day and about half of the second day was completely devoted to getting books signed or signed and working with CGC. So that kind of leads me down this path of why did I not buy a lot of books? Well, one, most of the money went to the autographs. That's just the straight up truth about that. Most of that money went to the autographs. Artists are charging for every signature out there. There's only a few artists that didn't accept money or really had deals where if you could get the first 5 signed for free and then you pay after that. I mean, there's little things like that, but most of them, it was cash. Cash is king. And it honestly was pretty expensive by the time I was done, including going to CGC, getting those orders in. So it left me with, what books do I want to get? How much time do I have to actually look at books? Well, the second part of this was, and hopefully you watched one of my other episodes about the Baltimore Comic-Con, where I go and I'm on the search for 181, Hulk 181. That actually was the primary goal outside of getting books signed, was to look for that book. And I'll be quite honest, on Saturday when I was finished up with the autographs, I spent the rest of the day going from booth to booth to booth, looking for that Hulk 181, and I really wasn't concerned about everything else. And trust me, there were a lot of great books. And if you watch my opening video to the series, you see a lot of the dealers and you see a lot of the walls. Books were great, but also the books were pretty expensive. But I don't want to get into talking about the price quite so fast. But so there, I'm left with Saturday looking for the Hulk 181, and I really wasn't even looking to make the trade on that day for the books that I had brought with me. I'd brought some really good juice with me, some graded books, and I was looking for a trade, but I had to go find the book I was looking for first. So I went around to every dealer. I kept a list of where the Hulk 181s were, what condition they were in, how much they were asking for, and things like that. And again, watch that episode and you'll see why that ended up being a fail, why I did not pull the trigger on that. But there's a lot of time right there that got taken up in that search. So between looking for Hulk 181 and then the signings, I mean, we're practically 2 days of nothing but dealing with that part of it. It didn't leave really a lot of time to then go to the third level and looking for really good books that could be pressed, things I would love to invest in and bring back, work on them, clean and press them, and get them back into CGC. And we're talking about books in that $200 to $250 range, give or take. And we're talking about books like New Teen Titans #2 is a good example. I'm much more of a Bronze Age kind of guy, copper to bronze kind of guy, and those sort of books are closer to my wheelhouse. I'm not as big, even though I love them, going back to the Silver Age and books pre-1975. But here's the thing. A lot of the cash went, as I said before, to the signings. I wasn't looking to bring a lot of cash just for books. Quite honestly, I've got an office full of books that I honestly would have been looking for. As again, a great example, New Teen Titans number 2, first Deathstroke, right? I've got multiple copies of that sitting there waiting to be cleaned and pressed and get into CGC. So working on that as an investment, or even for the PC, I wasn't looking for that range of book. So after not finding Hulk 181, I was actually left a little dry. I revert back to looking for X-Men. John Byrne, really good X-Men. But to be quite honest, I've got every one of those issues, whether they're already graded in the grade I want, or I've got raws that are ready to be submitted or cleaned and pressed and getting ready for CGC. In fact, I submitted a couple of those at CGC during Baltimore Comic-Con. So I wasn't looking to replace things that really already had. So I didn't really go for those low three-digit number books that had a lot of potential. Honestly, Wolverine #1 limited series would have been another great one. That $200 to $225 price tag can get you a really minty copy. And with a good clean press, you can literally sell that. If you can get that 9/8, you can really sell that for $500. And honestly, I wasn't in the market. I wasn't in the mood for that. Plus, my enthusiasm was already drained after not finding that Hulk 181. So I spent the day on Sunday primarily going around looking at books, going through the bins, and when I get in this mood where then all of a sudden I don't want to spend money, then that's always the thing. It's at a certain point, I just don't want to spend money to spend money. I revert down to my lowest common denominator for me, which is looking for Invaders books. I'm down to 5 books plus the king size annual. Perfect. We'll look for that. And as I was going around, I found one or two things. One, I found dealers that had them that were all in poor condition, or they had them and they were in great condition, but they were way overpriced. In fact, there was one dealer, I mean, we're not talking about the keys that are left in what I need, but just commons. There are a couple commons in there. I'm just looking for high grade on them. And the price was astronomical. And at this point, I'm still getting discouraged. So we get down to the final hour of the final day at Baltimore Comic-Con. And there was one dealer that I couldn't get into his booth a little earlier on. He has an awkward entrance to his section. He has toys all around the entrance, and there was a family there blocking the path. And I carry this giant, what do you call it? It's a tote bag, rolling book bag type of thing. It's a crate, really, and it's huge, and it's hard to get maneuver, especially around people. So I said I would come back to him at some point, and because I could see back in the distance his boxes, he actually did have a section of Invaders books, a pretty big section. In fact, I could even tell from about 6 feet away. So I eventually, in probably the last 45 minutes of the show on Sunday, I went back to his booth and I ended up go through the Invaders section, and I ended up buying this right here. It was issue number 29 of the Invaders. It's a really nice copy. He cut the price. He had a $20 price tag on it, which honestly is too much, but he cut it down a lot because, again, last hour of the show. And I spent some time in his booth, and I almost picked up a Wonder Woman 200 and issue 196 that were actually really nice, especially that issue 200. That's a pretty iconic cover. It's you've got Wonder Woman in chains. It's a bondage cover. It's a really strange cover. And I almost picked it up, but it had a big dog ear down at the bottom in that black part of the cover, and I got scared off of the condition. I didn't want to overspend on that just because I had missed out on purchasing these issues a month or so ago at Infinity Comics. I was bidding on these comics, and it went too high, and I didn't want to just buy this as a replacement and then be disappointed that they weren't going to grade out as high as I had hoped. So I passed on those. He also had a lot of the Kraven's Last Hunt books that I'm still looking for, 9/8 candidates, and they were all really nice, but they weren't quite there, especially that one of those spectacular Spider-Man. I think 131 is the only one I'm still needing as a 9.8, but I always look at the other ones. And there was a micro tick, color-breaking micro tick there, and it's like, I'm not sending this book in. The value in these things have dropped so much that a 9.6 isn't worth getting graded at this point. So I passed on all that, but I did pick up Invaders 29 right here. This is from June of 1978. It is the first appearance of the Teutonic Knight. I don't think that's a huge key or anything, and I'm not even going to give you values at CGC. I don't care, because I am looking to complete this run as a fairly high-grade run of Invaders books, and this is one of the issues I needed. And at that point, got an hour left in the show, and I think I'm done, but I have literally retraced my steps over and over again with all the dealers, and I'm kind of in that area that's floating around near the entrance, and I ended up going back. I've got the card right here. I ended up going back to one dealer. I've been there several times, but I was looking for Hulks. I wasn't looking for Invaders at that point. But I stopped by J&S Comics out of Connecticut. And I've been to their booth before in previous cons here in Baltimore. And I started thumbing through, and I ended up going through their Invaders section. And I ended up picking up another copy of issue 29, only because it was a little bit less, and it was actually slightly better condition, I think. And that's, I'm thinking to myself that you're an idiot. You just literally, yes, you needed this book, but you didn't really need two of them. But I went ahead and picked it up because the condition was a little bit better. And they had issue number 38. So I ended up with two of the issues that I need out of my final 5 of the regular series for this run. Now, your guys are probably going, these are common books, but finding them in high grade was the trick. And honestly, these are really nice books. And overall, I was really impressed overall with everything that they had there at JNS. And I ended up going through, because I was impressed with that condition, I started thumbing through some of the other lots, mostly the Marvel. I didn't spend a lot of time. Remember, we're down to the final hour of the day. And I started going through, and I'm thinking to myself, well, and I was right there towards Invaders, and it was right there with the boxes, and I ended up over in the Marvel Premiere section. And there are Invaders adjacent books out there that you should, if you're working on a run of Invaders, there are other books that you need to have in this collection. That includes issue number 29 of Marvel Premiere. And this is Bucky leading the Liberty Legion right here. Now, this right here is from August of 1976. And I did bring some values to this because, honestly, this is a crazy high-grade book from 1976. 9.8 last sale on this, and the only sale I could find in the last few years actually was $407. But this is one of those that fall into that category, just like those other Invaders books. If you get a 9.6, it's going to drop well below $100, and it's not going to be worth getting graded. But again, I am buying this as part of the Invaders run that I'm working on. They also had another crazy high grade of issue number 31 right there with the Red Skull. You had these two issues in Marvel Premiere that were really good. June of 1976. This right here was almost a $400 sale recently as a 9.8. So both of them actually have a lot of potential. And trust me, when I get around to actually rebagging and reboarding some of these and really checking them out, if I suspect that one of these may be a real 9.8 candidate, I may end up pulling that out and sending it into CGC at some point. But these weren't the only Invaders adjacent books that I went for. There's one that actually I think is probably top of the list for everybody, and it's this one right here. It is What If number 4 from August of 1977. And what's really good about this right here is that you've got Frank Robbins doing the artwork and Roy Thomas doing the writing. And this is the creative team for most of the Invaders books. So it's really cool that they brought that team over to do this book. It has the same feel as a regular Invaders book. And this is actually a really crazy condition. I didn't bother giving you values on this. Corners are super sharp on this square-bound book, except for that one right there. There's a little bit of rub right there. And again, I'm not interested in getting this graded necessarily, but in the future, if I take a closer look at it and it sneaks up there, there might be a maybe somewhere in there, I might go ahead and send it in at some point. Now, I'm going to circle back to Marvel Premiere because as I was going through that bin, and I wasn't spending a lot of time there, but I was doing a quick thumb through on certain things. I did see this. This was Marvel Premiere number 35. It is the first appearance, here, let me take some of these books out. It is the first appearance of the 3D Man. And I bought this book at a antique store not that long ago for almost a few dollars, but this is actually a really sharp copy of this. And it kind of intrigued me because it had been on my radar before. 9.8s honestly run $175, $230, $162. But again, a 9.6 will drop off and fall off the cliff under $100. So I bought that because, again, it was in my radar slightly. And the potential of this grade, the condition looked crazy good. So that's why I ended up picking that up. That was just because I had been looking at those other Marvel premieres. But again, I started going through the other bins. And I ended up going, and one of my old-time favorite comics when I was a kid back in 1973 was Supernatural Thrillers #5. I was looking at this. This was a great run. One of my favorite books is an issue, I think it's the issue right after this with the Killdozer. I believe I've got that right. And this issue was the first appearance of the Living Mummy at Marvel. What a great book. Beautiful cover. I had this as a kid, and then a number of years ago, I picked up a better copy that I had wanted to get graded at some point, but it still has some ticks over there. And again, J&S Comics has some really good books, and I'm looking at this, and I'm going, well, this is pretty good. There's a little softness on the corners right here, but there's no dog ears. And because it has, I want to see if I can go forward there, you might be able to see that the white from the back cover comes around, wraps around the front just a little bit. You're not going to get any color-breaking spine ticks over here. And they had a $35 price tag on there, and I'm going, this might have some potential, but I need to take a look at the back of the book. So for once, I pulled the book out, and on a book that I wanted to invest in, I pulled this book out and took a look at the back to see just what kind of damage was going to be back there. A lot of cases like this, the book may look fantastic from the front, but the back may end up having foxing and aging and God knows what else. And I kind of was expecting that because I thought this was a pretty good price tag to start off with. And opened it up, or they opened it up. I took a look at the back. Back is super, well, I say super clean. I was going to say super clean with spine ticks. There's no spine ticks. What it needs is a really good dry clean on the back, and this book actually has some potential. And I thought that this book had a 9.2 potential with possibly an outside shot at maybe a 9.4. So I pulled up some values on that just to see if I was making a good deal. Now, I didn't look at it while I was at the show. I knew that this book graded at a high level would be worth it, especially at this price. 9.4s have gone over the last year, $307, $360, down up to $385. Even a 9.2, $144, $225, $365. And even I went down just a little bit just in case I'm overestimating this grade. 9.0s, 200, 175, 159. That all, as long as I can get that 9.0, I think an 8.5, I would be not quite as happy, obviously. But I think that this could grade out to at least a 9.2 with an outside shot of a 9.4. We'll see how the dry cleaning does on this book, but I have a lot of potential for this book right here. I think it's better than a copy that I already have in the PC. But I'm also looking, again, and I don't have a lot of time, so I'm sticking with what I know, which is in Marvel. And one of the things I always look for is a Fantastic Four 244, the first appearance of Frankie Ray as Nova. But there's another book that's a key, and that's her first appearance in Fantastic Four number 164. This right here is a double key. You've got first appearance of Frankie Ray, and you've got the first appearance of, it's not Quasar, guys. It does look like Quasar, but this is the first appearance of the Crusader, which is, I guess, a early version of Quasar, really. It's the same quantum bands. And first, it's the first appearance of the quantum bands that Quasar uses. And that's the first appearance of this as well. But curiously, I was looking up some of the information on this book, and it came out in November of 1975. And I didn't think it was quite that old. That's interesting. You've got some great George Perez artwork. You've got Jack Kirby on the cover. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I thought this was a really good book to invest in because the crazy condition on this book right here. 9.2s, I thought it could grade out to at least a 9.2. $221, $250 are recent sales. Outside shot at a 9.4. And now what's interesting is those prices have kind of gone down a little bit, 150 to 195. I mean, it depends on when people buy something and when something is of interest to somebody, I guess. Its timing has a lot to do with a lot of things. Even a 9.6, I don't think this could reach up there, but possibly a 9.6, $336 down to $260. This book has a lot of potential. Again, you see that $35 price tag on there. And what I will tell you guys is I bundled this whole batch, except every book here came from J&S Comics except for the very first Invaders book. And they bundled everything together and knocked off, I want to say it was, what did they knock off? It was about $20 to $25 at least off of that. And I think that had a lot to do with it was the last hour of the show type of thing. And I was real happy with what I paid. I think there's a lot of potential in these last 3 books, especially. I'm not too much worried about the Invaders style books, but the Fantastic Four, the supernatural thrillers, and then the last book right here that I ended up picking up. And this has been on the radar recently, only because it was a book from my childhood. It has a great cover. I think it had more to do with the cover than anything, but it is also a key Captain America book. It is issue 176. This is the end of Captain America. With what happened with the Secret Empire storyline, he was disillusioned and ended up quitting. So this book right here, it was sort of the follow-up to all that, but it is a key because of Cap quitting in this, and it has this beautiful John Romita Sr. cover, and I'd had it as a child. So this book became on my radar because I've been trying to upgrade some of my favorite books as a child. In fact, I probably already upgraded this but at one point, but this was a really nice condition book, and it has some nice potential if you can get it to at least the 9.6 level. I don't think it hit a 9.8, but I think it has an outside shot at a 9.6. 9.4s go for anywhere from $68 up to $150. 9.6s, though, go from $300 up to almost $600. Some of those prices may have been closer to the peak COVID time. It doesn't go back that long ago, but they're not quite as frequent or as fresh as that $200 or $300 one right there. But it's a book I want for the PC, and it's in super high grade, and I'm happy to have it. But guys, that is the books that I picked up at the Baltimore Comic Con, and I'm real happy with this because I didn't spend a lot on the comics, and I got books that I really wanted, that I love, and I wanted them for the PC. Even the books that I'm speculating on here, those last 3, are books that I loved as a child, and now I've got really great copies for the PC. And if I sell them, that's great. That's fine. It's going to be a really good collectible. I'm straddling both sides of this fence between being a super fan and a, if you want to say it, a dealer or reseller or whatever. I'm doing both at the exact same time. And I think these have got a lot of potential, and I've picked up books for the PC, so real happy with all of that. And I don't mind not going there and picking up, trying to find some mega key outside of the Hulk 181, but other keys. I could have gone down a lot of routes here. I could have gone and looked for some great Silver Age books. I could have delved into something in with EC and the Golden Age horror. I mean, there's so many avenues you could go down here, and I choose really to go back to my childhood and really focus on the books that I loved. I can't get away from that. I guess this is my strong suit. My wheelhouse is this right here, but can't complain about what I picked up and what I did at the Baltimore Comic Con. And while we're talking about, what books, I said, my wife will be on me about saying, what I wanted to throw in right here was one of my pleasures at the show was getting to meet in person one of my favorite YouTubers out there. That was Jim from Bronzeville Comics. He actually came in on Saturday, and as soon as he came in, he found me in line with Walt Simonson, and he talked a lot about digging through the bins, trying to find some really good books. And in our talks, he was definitely looking for bigger books than I was, and that's what kind of brought him back to mind here, and why I wanted to mention this. And if you watch the montage, you'll see him in one of the clips right there while I was in line with Walt. He came over and he talked and everything. And at the time, I think he filmed a little bit with me talking to him, but I'm such a horrible YouTuber that I forgot to actually film us interacting, but at least I did a selfie, right? I mean, that's at least counts for something. But Jim was looking for better books bigger books than I was. And that's when I realized I'm going to stay in my wheelhouse, and my wheelhouse is basically bronze and copper, and up from there more than anything. A lot less on the silver and definitely not on golden age at all. But I'm hoping that he found some really good books, and I'm looking forward to watching his channel from his experience at Baltimore Comic Con and finding out what books that he found at this show. And it was great meeting him. And Jim, if you're watching this, it was awesome. Thank you for finding me, and I was glad we could finally meet in person after talking back and forth on the YouTube channels for the last basically couple years now, I guess. So guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Definitely leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of books that I picked up. And if you were at Baltimore Comic Con, let me know what books you picked up there and what books are you speculating on. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks again for joining me. Definitely continue watching this series of episodes that I'm putting out on the Baltimore Comic Con. There's still a few left. I don't know which order these are coming in, so I'm not telling you what's coming up next, but definitely check out all the videos from the 2024 Baltimore Comic Con. There's a pretty good series of episodes that are going to be talking about different things, and the remaining episodes that I still have to do are still pretty good. So definitely check those out in the future. And guys, that is it. I'm out of here. Have a great day, and remember, every comic has a story.